Coming up on Lawmakers. Governor Sonny Perdue signs the measure requiring official ID from voters at the polls. Secretary of State Cathy kicks off a tour of Georgia in her campaign for governor. And legislators explore the impact of the Hapeville Ford plant closure. Those stories and more are coming up next.
This is Lawmakers, your source for all the news from under the Gold Dome. Here are your anchors, Gerald Bryant and Nwandi Lawson.
Good evening, everyone. I'm David Zelski, filling in for Nwandi Lawson. Also on Lawmakers, Senator Sam Zamarripa shares study committee results about splitting Fulton County in two.
And the House Human Relations and Aging Committee gives a due pass to the creation of Maddie's Call. But first, our top story tonight, the voter ID bill is signed into law.
Governor Perdue signed the new voter ID bill into law today. Republican members of the House and Senate who supported the bill joined Governor Perdue, who said Senate Bill 84 is what the people of Georgia wanted to help prevent fraud in the polls.
I'm signing it today because we want it to be available as soon as possible. And while this provision did not factor into our budget considerations, I will wholeheartedly endorse and recommend whatever budgetary efforts it takes to make this in every county in the state available as soon as practical for our citizens.
Even though Senate Bill 84 has been signed, some opponents say a judge may still find the bill unconstitutional, just like last year's version.
I think it cures the objections that were expressed there from the plaintiffs and from the bench. And I have no anticipation this law will be thrown out. It's available to all. What could be more fair? On what basis could it be thrown out? It's available to all. All you have to do is demonstrate that you are eligible to vote in Georgia in that district. There are no other. This is the silly thing about poll tax. This cures. I mean, there was never any evidence of that at all. This just closes the mouths of the plaintiffs in this effort, and I have no idea that this law, under any pretenses, could be deemed not constitutional and not appropriate.
Senate Bill 84 is the second bill this week that Governor Perdue has signed into law. Yesterday, he signed a bill cutting sales tax on propane and natural gas in half.
This morning, Secretary of State and gubernatorial candidate Cathy kicked off a statewide tour. The rally was on the Capitol steps, and Cox was joined by Democratic members of both the House and Senate. She began by outlining her platform.
The first step is getting our government back focused again on all of the people of Georgia. This campaign to move Georgia forward has already been through dozens of counties and will be going through dozens and dozens more. And wherever we go, we will be gathering support for the same principles. We need a government that works for all Georgians, not just the insiders. We deserve leaders who are committed to the principles of opportunity, responsibility, and progress. And we expect to have a governor who leads the way to a better Georgia.
Secretary Cox also took the opportunity to criticize the Republican-controlled legislature this morning. She says that leadership is influenced too much by special interest lobbyists, and she pledged to combat that with a strong ethics package if elected governor.
This legislature has only been in session for about 2 to 3 weeks, and look at what has happened, or should I say what hasn't happened. Our government leaders have spent days bickering over yet another redistricting plan. Both the House and Senate have wasted hours upon hours to pass the nation's most restrictive voting laws. Now, are those bills going to improve the lives of everyday Georgians when what those people are worried about are these natural gas bills they're getting that are hundreds of dollars higher than they've ever seen before, and there is no solution in sight?
Cox's tour for the Democratic nomination for governor will take her to Rome, Gainesville, and Rossville, Georgia. And the Secretary of State also used this morning's kickoff rally to criticize what she called political insiders who use their power to benefit themselves.
You know, there are a lot of folks who think that the most important decisions in our state are made right behind me, right here in this state capitol, in the legislative chambers, in the committee rooms, and in the offices of powerful politicians. Some folks think that it's okay that our government makes decisions in the dark corners of those corridors of power, where insiders whisper and slap backs and cut deals to benefit themselves and their friends. I happen to believe differently.
Now, last week, Secretary of State Cox said Georgia needed comprehensive ethics reform. That statement, coupled with today's charges, brought quick reaction from Senate President Pro Tem Eric Johnson, who said Governor Perdue has been leading the way in ethics reform and didn't need any help from gubernatorial candidate Cathy Cox.
We don't need a Cathy come lately. We have passed historic ethics reform legislation that has stopped the revolving door, that has required more disclosure, that has opened up transparency on all the lobbyists for vendors, and has established a method to challenge conflicts of interest for the executive and legislative branch. Things that were never done with 135 years of rule by her party. So I believe that Secretary of State Cathy Cox has jumped on an issue that all of a sudden she has found when we've been leading on this issue for several years and have passed historic legislation.
Senator Johnson also said that the Perdue administration had doubled appropriations for the State Ethics Commission, and even more money would be added to that agency's budget.
The tragic death of an Atlanta woman has prompted some legislators to sponsor a bill changing rescue protocol in the state. Currently, searches for adults do not begin within 24 hours of an adult's disappearance. The bill would change that in cases where an adult has Alzheimer's or dementia. Lawmakers Jesse Freeman joins us live with more on this story. Jesse.
Well, thank you, David. Maddie Moore was found dead a year after she went missing. Aging advocates say that permitting officers to begin searches for Alzheimer's and dementia patients immediately will prevent others from meeting the same fate. In April of 2004, Alzheimer's patient Maddie Moore went missing. But because she was an adult, law enforcement didn't immediately look for her.
In the case of Maddie, they waited too long before they started looking for her. And when they finally found her body about a year later, obviously she had deceased.
Police usually wait 24 hours before searching for adults. Representative Bobby Franklin wants to change that with House Bill 728.
It allows law enforcement to immediately start looking for an adult who is a missing person, who is mentally impaired or incapacitated.
The aging advocacy community and long-term care industry support the bill.
If they're not found within 24 hours, then there's a 50% chance they will be found either seriously injured or even died.
We support the bill. I think it's a wonderful idea, and everybody in my association thinks it's a wonderful idea.
An amendment was added requiring long-term care homes to notify law enforcement of missing patients under specific conditions.
We have to be clear that we're not asking something that they can't do.
House Bill 728, as amended, passed unanimously. The Atlanta Police Department has already enacted a Maddie's Call search protocol. Representative Bobby Franklin says the state should follow suit. Reporting live, I'm Jesse Freeman for Lawmakers.
Thank you, Jesse.
In other news, auto workers, the Labor and Economic Development Commissioners, and the City of Hapeville officials were among those who today told the Senate Economic Development Committee about the impact of the GM and Ford plant closings. The hearing focused on how the state could help displaced workers, plans to redevelop the plants, and long-term job growth. Several scenarios were presented to explain the recent Ford decision to close its Hapeville location, beginning with the head of the state's Economic Development Department, who said negotiations were going well until the media intervened.
Around the same time, we received our first open records request from the Atlanta newspapers. And of course, the timing could not have been worse. We were trying to convince Ford that Georgia is business-friendly and ready to help them succeed. And the AJC wanted to spread the company's business plans across the front page. If revealed at that time, we felt the work and documents would have shown every Ford competitor around the world their plans and their direction. We alerted Ford, and the company was forced to file a lawsuit seeking to block the release of documents. Thankfully, a judge agreed with the company and issued a temporary restraining order. Lawsuits, courtrooms, restraining orders, not what I would call a business-friendly environment.
As everyone knows, plans can change. We came in the process. I think the governor's participation in the conference call with Michigan's top people in Ford in Michigan certainly was very important. I can tell you that the governors that visited the headquarters in Michigan had no effect on the final decisions. And these were decisions that were being made at a global level for the company, not necessarily reflecting Georgia, Missouri, Michigan, any of the other states that in fact were affected by these decisions.
The GM plant in Doraville is slated to remain open until 2008, while the Hateville Ford plant is currently idle. Ford will officially close that site next year.
Governor Perdue was joined by representatives from the ATF and the National Shooting Sports Foundation, along with U.S. District Attorney David Namias, to promote a new gun safety campaign called Don't Lie for the Other Guy. The campaign is designed to educate firearm retailers on how to detect people who purchase firearms for someone who cannot legally do so.
They're called straw purchasers, someone buying guns for someone else who isn't supposed to have one.
Guns found at crime scenes are traced back to the straw purchaser, because the straw purchaser's name is listed right there on the ATF forms as purchasing the guns. And then the straw purchaser is looking at a federal prosecution, a felony conviction, and prison time. Straw purchasers need to have clean records to be able to make a gun purchase. So they're usually people who've never had any problems with the law before. They're often a friend or a relative who is doing a favor for someone who is a convicted felon.
It's a national campaign that's now focusing on Atlanta.
The message today is simple. Don't be fooled into making a big mistake. Don't lie for the other guy. As we educate the public and gun dealers on this issue of straw purchases of guns, we'll continue our strong efforts here in Georgia to take violent offenders off the streets and keep firearms out of the hands of those who should not have them.
Firearms dealers can help us by asking suspicious purchasers more questions, by ensuring that all requirements are followed in the completion of federal firearms forms, and by refusing to make questionable sales. Federal firearms dealers can also help by reporting suspicious behavior they observe to federal authorities, and by taking reasonable precautions to safeguard their inventories from theft.
Don't Lie for the Other Guy public service announcements will soon be seen and heard on television and radio all around northern Georgia.
The Legislative Office Building, located on Mitchell Street in Atlanta, across from the state capitol, is now officially the Paul Coverdell Legislative Office Building. The late United States Senator served in the Georgia General Assembly for many years and was also head of the Peace Corps. At state capitol ceremonies today, Governor Perdue remembered Senator Coverdell as a leader of great energy and compassion.
How appropriate. Quietly effective, a man without guile who really cut his political teeth right here between these two buildings. And to understand the impact that Paul Coverdell had on Georgia's life and Georgians' life would take us a long time to calculate. But the very fact about the way he lived his life personally, his family life, and his political life says a lot about him. It's hard to find anybody. In fact, I've never found anyone to say anything bad about Paul Coverdell. Hard-working, quietly effective, getting a job done, all about solutions, not about name-calling, and building those bridges, as Eric said. He was a great Georgian who personified that creed that we attribute to many people, but certainly Coca-Cola chairman Robert Woodruff said it. There's no limit to what a man can do or where he can go if he doesn't mind who gets the credit. Paul Coverdell, one of the things I loved about him was that he was not about the credit. He was about the solutions and about seeing lives better for Georgians in his role here, and as senator, and in the Peace Corps, about lives better over all this planet. And that's what we loved about him.
Again, after his many years of service in the General Assembly and the Peace Corps, Senator Coverdell was elected to the U.S. Senate in 1992. He passed away in 2000.
2 or more new municipalities may soon be created in Fulton County. What originated as a study committee to split Fulton into 2 separate counties has concluded that several new cities within Fulton County would best serve its citizens. Senators Sam Zamarripa, Dan Moody, and Dan Weber presented the committee report this morning.
It's something we did as more of a community-driven desire to have government closer to the people.
Last year, the General Assembly voted to allow Sandy Springs to become its own city. This year, the cities of Milton, Johns Creek, and a few others may follow suit.
It comes down to this. Municipalization is more than a theme. It is going to be one of the key definers of the future of Fulton County. We're going to have new cities. These cities are going to take increased responsibility for the delivery of services.
The study committee's extensive report came in the form of a 4-inch thick binder. Some of the main changes we may see this year. First, a plan for a smaller Fulton County government. Second, up to 4 bills creating new cities. Third, Grady Hospital and MARTA becoming regional entities. Fourth, examining the Fulton County school system. And finally, creating a county chairman position with more authority. Senator Dan Moody said he agreed with much of the report, but did not want to omit the possibility of creating a new county.
The only thing that I feel like is still up in the air is how we look at the needs of North Fulton County long-term relative to looking at an opportunity for a separate county. I feel like the jury's still out on that issue, and Senator, if we choose to disagree on that, I'm sure you'll allow me to do so publicly.
Now, Senator Zamarripa added that Sandy Springs is just the beginning of a trend because as density increases, people want government closer to them.
For those of you with access to the Internet, you can watch Lawmakers online. Visit our website at gpb.org for more information. Click on Watch Online to then follow the instructions for watching live or looking at past Lawmakers programs in our archives. That website address again is gpb.org. Just another way we keep you apprised of what's going on at the Georgia General Assembly.
We'd like to recommend another website that's a valuable resource for information about the Georgia General Assembly. Go to www.legis.state.ga.us. That website is a great research tool we at Lawmakers use on a regular basis.
Back to the news. The state Senate today passed a bill that keeps the State Public Service Commission from controlling any aspect of broadband or wireless service. Senator Mitch Seabaugh spoke on behalf of the committee substitute to Senate Bill 120.
Thank you, Mr. President. The committee substitute to Senate Bill 120 is the product of an extensive study by a joint study committee and an advisory committee. That advisory committee was made up of 22 industry experts and members of the PSC, and they carefully and extensively discussed every word, comma, and period in the substitute language. This bill is a consensus from that group, and it is considered necessary to maintain the enormous investment that is being made by the industry in the areas of wireless, broadband, and voice-over internet protocol. The bill simply walls off the PSC from stepping in and regulating rates, terms, and conditions in the areas of wireless, broadband, and VoIP. The bill preserves the authority of the PSC they currently have and has in no way taken away anything that they currently have the authority to do. There is one amendment that I would ask for your support of, and that amendment basically better clarifies the current position that the PSC is with regard to consumer complaints, and the only thing that's added in that amendment is paragraph B2 with regard to customer complaints.
Again, also passed was an amendment stating that the broadband bill would not take away any authority currently held by the Public Service Commission, including the authority to deal with consumer complaints. Senate Bill 120 now goes to the House of Representatives.
Today, the House Rules Committee gave a due pass to the House bill that would legalize posting the 10 Commandments in government buildings. The bill would also require the State Attorney General's office to defend against any lawsuit those local governments might face. The bill's sponsor is Representative Tommy Benton.
America's religious heritage plays an important role in the history and background of American law, and we think that courthouses and judicial facilities would be the right place to display these documents. The documents in question are the Mayflower Compact, 10 Commandments, and the Declaration of Independence.
Any questions for the author? No questions? Representative Hughes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Does this require the state to take care of any lawsuits that might result?
Yes, it does. It does not. It also does not mandate that counties have to do this. It would be purely voluntary on their part.
Is there an estimated cost that the state might incur as a result?
No. we don't know whether there would be a challenge or not. It could be, but we do know that there's already been a challenge, and the Federal Appeals Court that handles Kentucky area has already ruled that a display of this kind is constitutional. So we feel like that that would be precedent here in Georgia as well.
Representative Benton says the bill is necessary to mark the religious history of the nation. House Bill 941 now heads to the House floor for debate.
The Georgia's Nurses Association held a rally at the Capitol today in support of House Bill 935 and Senate Bill 313. The bills would allow nurse practitioners to write prescriptions without a doctor's oversight. They said if nurses can diagnose an illness, they should be allowed to write prescriptions. And they say Georgia is the only state that prohibits nurses from doing this. And these nurses, doctors, and patients want to make that a thing of the past.
When I came back to Georgia, I felt like I was a character in an H.G. Wells novel. Whisked back in time to a time when advanced practice nurses were not recognized for their safe and effective care.
I know what nurse practitioners do because they were my primary health care providers as I was being treated for my leukemia. They're doing this today. They just don't have signing authority. So what we need to do is just get her done.
Both House and Senate bills allowing prescriptive power were introduced last year, but the session ended before either bill made it out of committee.
Today, Governor Sonny Perdue spoke with the Independent Schools Association about his education agenda. The association consists of homeschool families as well as private schools and colleges. The governor encouraged the members to utilize both the virtual schools and Georgia College 411 programs. He also spoke to them about his Hope Chest initiative.
The other thing that we'll be doing this year is what I'm calling the Hope Chest Constitutional Amendment. We just have celebrated our $8 billion of lottery funds going into education in Georgia, but of that $8 billion, 1.8 was used for other than Hope and pre-K. And we want to give the people of Georgia an opportunity to kind of seal that deal and make sure that we don't have anything else skirting out other than student-focused, student-centered opportunities with the Hope and pre-K. And we're going to focus on that. I believe it'll be accepted well, and I certainly think if the people of Georgia have an opportunity to vote on it, it'll pass overwhelmingly.
The Hope Chest Initiative, or Senate Resolution 655, passed out of the Senate Higher Education Committee yesterday. It requires a 2/3 majority in both houses to be added to the November ballot.
Well, braving an early morning chill, Senator Joseph Carter introduced the Student Health and Fitness Act at a press conference today.
I'm afraid that we've sent an equally strong but negative message when it comes to physical activity. We have sent the message that being physically active, making healthy lifestyle choices many times is an elective. In fact, in some schools, physical education is treated as an elective. The health and the fitness of our youth should never be an elective. We're proud today to introduce the Student Health and Fitness Act.
This legislation recommends 150 minutes of physical education for Georgia students in grades K through 5. Two major supporters of the bill are Dr. Mary Ellen Sweeney and 13-year-old Chandler Converse.
Students, as Georgians in general, have become increasingly overweight and more sedentary, especially over the past decade. And along with that has come a decrease in overall physical activity, but most strikingly a decrease in physical activity that's mandated in the schools.
I would like to thank you all for your interest in this issue. I'm here to represent all of Georgia's students. For the past 2 years, I've been working to ensure that Georgia's kids grow up healthy. Today, I am appealing to you, our lawmakers, educators, health leaders, and parents.
When I was that age, I couldn't walk and chew gum at the same time. This legislation was created by a study by the American Heart Association, revealed 43% of Georgia third graders were overweight.
The Georgia State Senate received a special gift today. As Senator John Douglas explains, the state flag from the 48th Brigade of the Georgia National Guard has seen combat duty.
And what I have here for the Senate as a gift from the 48th Brigade to the Georgia Senate is a Georgia flag that will be displayed here in the Senate that was actually carried into battle in Iraq with the 48th Brigade. The flag was sent with a note, and I'd like to read the note to you. says this flag was flown September 12, 2005.
Now we have some visitors from the second floor on the floor today, but let's try to give the senator your attention. This is important.
Thank you, Mr. President. The note that came with the flag says this flag was flown September 12, 2005 over Camp St. Michael, Muhammadiyah, Iraq. It was then carried into battle 15-16 September by Troop E, 108th Cavalry, which is based in Griffin, Georgia, and draws from throughout central Georgia, during Operation Ryan. This joint Iraqi-U.S. operation included E Troop, 108th Cavalry, and elements of the 2nd Battalion, 4th Brigade of the Iraqi Army. It was supported by Apache, Chinook, and Black Hawk helicopters, F-16s, and unmanned aerial vehicles, along with Humvees. The air assault yielded 1 dead insurgent, 1 wounded and captured, and 6 others captured. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll display this flag in the Senate as an honor to our 48th Brigade soldiers. So at this point, I would like to present this flag to the President and President Pro Tem of the Georgia Senate. Well, we're going to put it on the flagpole anyway.
Well, lawmakers will not be seen tomorrow or Monday because the Georgia General Assembly will not be in session. We'll return on Tuesday, January 31st at 7 p.m. for Legislative Day 10. If you have missed any part of this Lawmakers broadcast, tune in tomorrow morning when Lawmakers repeats at 5:30 a.m. Now stay tuned for This Old House. That's coming up next here on GPB. And as we mentioned, lawmakers won't be on tomorrow and Monday, and that's because they need some time off to work on the budget. That's one of the next things, the next big things we'll see here at the General Assembly is the big budget for the next fiscal year. That always takes some extra time, some extra meetings to work out.
Yeah, next week we can look for some of House Majority Leader Jerry Keene's sexual predator legislation. He's talked about that quite a bit. Also, we heard a lot about the Fulton County bills that could be coming out. There's 4 that Senator Zamarripa talked about that we can definitely look forward to seeing.
And we could see more cities in Fulton County. Also some big ticket items yet to come at the Georgia General Assembly. Eminent domain, that caused quite a stir last year. In fact, a bill was even withdrawn because it was perceived to be a bill that would promote the abuse of eminent domain. So there are at least 1 or 2 major eminent domain bills that we can expect. Also, the Republicans are saying they would like to do something about illegal aliens. Not a whole lot that can be done at the state level, but what they're saying is they would like to make sure that people who are not in Georgia legally don't get certain benefits that Georgians would, and that's something that's expected to cause some controversy in the Georgia General Assembly.
And that's our broadcast for this, the 9th legislative day of the Georgia General Assembly. I'm David Zelsky.
And I'm Gerald Bryant, hoping that you join us on Tuesday when we return. Thanks for watching.
Production of Georgia Public Broadcasting.